Excellent. We're here with Chris. Thank you for joining us here. We're at the AAPCP conference down in Nashville, having a great time. I've been asking these questions to everyone here. What was your first job in physician compensation? How did you get into it?
Yeah, interestingly enough, it's I started as an analyst with our firm. So I've been with Pinnacle for 14 years and kind of worked my way up through it. So I fell into it in kind of a backwards way, I like to think sometimes. I went to law school. So I did law school and did like a health law focus with a master's in health administration. Kind of came out and was like, I don't know, want to go the law route. I want to do consulting, and kind of networked and kind of fell into it. But it complements both sets of my training. So it was intriguing to me because I got to work with the regulatory side tangentially and kind of never looked back.
That's interesting. I love hearing about attorneys that got into the space. Yeah. Alex Krauss, Bob Wade. There's a handful of attorneys that got into the space. So it's really cool to see different folks in there. But what does your family think that you do?
They have no idea. I try to explain it, and I say it in the simplest terms, and I don't like describing it this way, but it's the only way to kind of articulate it is I basically tell people how much they pay doctors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Why? I'm like, well, there are rules and regulations about it, so that's it.
That's cool. So as we kind of think about what in the market, you're out there doing the consulting, you were working with all these different health systems. What do you see the most activity? What kind of projects are coming across your desk the most right now?
Yeah, with a lot of it, hospital-based issues. Anesthesia, radiology is really big right now. Groups that have never needed subsidies need subsidies now, and just trying to navigate that. Both not only from a fair market value, but strategic and operations perspective, commercial reasonableness, and kind of help understanding how it got there, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of all different. I also do a lot of kind of niche different work outside of provider comp. I do a lot in like health technology, digital health, and consumerism and things like that. So there's a bunch of stuff going on in that space. But yeah, largely, if not hospital-based issues, more of the strategic comp plan design. And kind of management and the operations of it. So policy and procedure around your comp plans and documentation, and really setting the programs up for success, right? So you calibrate up front to be functionally fair market value, but there's a whole process of documenting like how you do that from a policy, procedure, management, reporting style that we're seeing more and more of.
I see that too. I see a lot of folks that work on fair market value and compliance when they execute the arrangement. And now I kind of see a pivot to how do we monitor this arrangement and make sure it's effective ongoing. So what is the kind of the key to that? What type of, without giving out too much on the secret sauce there, what are like the two things that organizations could maybe foster a little bit better environment for to help that?
The biggest thing, and it sounds so easy, is slow down. I think it's also understanding the stakeholders, and that's not who you necessarily think of all the time. Surely legal, surely operations comes into play, but I think it's goes leaps and bounds to get provider buy-in. So have them at the table early. So have those conversations early and often, and it allows for a smoother process, right? And then it gets juice flowing, it gets trust. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, provider involvement, I think, is critical too. It's not that providers dictate how much money they're going to be paid, but they can have a seat at the table, feel that they're involved, and it's not something being dictated to them, but also provide guidance if there's something that doesn't align with how they clinically operate. So love that advice. Yep. With the hospital-based arrangements there, I think it's kind of an interesting space right now. We've had some pretty big bankruptcies in that space in the marketplace. Do you see a lot of hospitals maybe electing to employ the physicians and considering that as an avenue instead of continuing these type of subsidy arrangements?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to depend on the market for sure, if there's availability to support that type of like physician workforce. But we are seeing clients do that. They're starting to kind of go back to an employee model after they unwound them, and now they're winding them back up. I very much think healthcare is oddly enough circular. What we did 5 years ago comes back today. We're doing it again 10 years from now. But I think employment in the right setting, in the right organization that has the infrastructure to do it is a likely outcome. Do you figure out different ways to partner on kind of a PSA type model that aligns incentives for both parties through more creative contracting is probably the other option.
That's very interesting. I imagine, does this tie into, you're talking about the PSA structures and the employment models, is there a lot more focus on designing for like recruitment and incentives to identify these physicians earlier and how those, to get them into the organization earlier, and also have incentives for them to stay there for a long period? Has that been a big issue in the comp plan design?
Yeah, and I think it's probably been around for a long time, but people didn't talk about it as much. But definitely a lot of recruitment incentives, tuition reimbursement, or even, before they're finishing their kind of residency program.
Oh, the resident fellow stipend program there, where you pay them a monthly stipend until they graduate, and then they come on there.
But so you're seeing that a lot. And the crazy thing about some of those recruitment incentives is they're just all over the board. I think there's a lot of education say like it all has to be fair market value. And how do you treat all those things? You have to have the right contracting mechanisms in there to claw back if appropriate. And even if you have that, are they going to go after it? Right? Like those are the realities that you never really think about, but you have to. If you're going to do those things, you have to have those kind of mechanisms in there.
I think that's actually, you mentioned the clawback. I think that's an area that either organizations don't monitor there, that they set up the agreement and they think everything's going to be positive.
Yep.
There's always sometimes that case that it's unfortunate circumstances, or maybe it's not the right relationship. The physician departs. Does the organization know that there is a clawback provision? And then second, do they actually enforce it? And how do you actually get money back?
Yeah, I would say not all the time. They don't.
That's tough. Well, hey, we had a couple minutes here to chat. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you stopping by and sharing all the insights that you have.